Here's what we're going to learn to make in this lesson. It's a slim perfume box, a hero shot. No bottom of pack shown means no shadows or reflections, so it's nice and simple. And the subtle 3/4 angle is going to really help sell the 3D effect. Let's make a new document. I'm going 1920 by 1920 at 150 dpi. We're not going to worry about color at this point. So let's go over to our rectangle tool. You can also hit shortcut U to launch that. So let's drag a box down for our front panel. And we'll go in and fine tune that to 400 by 1500 tall. Now for the fill color, we'll just go through the motion of setting up a new color. If you want to use the same one I'm using 11313E, just a nice dark sultry navy blue. We're going to fill that. All right. I'm going to name this front panel. I'll right click and convert it to a smart object. We're going to do all our edits inside of the smart objects and do our transformations in the main part. So we can edit the contents in the properties panel, but I like to double click to edit. I find it just gets me there faster. Let's make a new layer above there. Hit D for our default colors and X to flip them. We're going to grab a gradient and just make sure we've got white to transparent. Let's start about there and pull it down to around about there. I want this to be a real soft, silky highlight, so I'm going to leave it on normal, but I'm going to drop the opacity to 25%. Next, we'll go filter noise, add noise, 20% noise with uniform distribution, and make sure monochromatic is checked. And what this is just giving us is the feeling that this substrate is actually made of something. As the light hits it, it's picking up some of the characteristics of the card, these little surface textures. While we've still got the gradient settings, let's drag an edge highlight just where this light starts to peel off as the mockup's going to turn the corner onto the darker side. So I'll make a new layer and just drag a very skinny little one like that. Let's leave it on normal as well and drop it to 10%. Now here's a little pro tip for you. We're going to be having a few highlights here. So let's call this main highlight. Let's make sure it's spelled correctly. And let's copy the word highlight. Let's go side, copy and paste. We're going to make one on top called top, copy and paste. And the top highlight, we're going to drag another little short one down. This one's going to be 20% though. Let's bring in our box art for this. I've got mine pulled down already, so I'm going for hard box front panel art. I'm going to tap F twice to get out of full screen because I want to tear this off. I'm going to hold Shift as I drag so that it lands in the same spot. Alright, so we want this to look more like something that's been foiled on there. So let's go ahead and add some effects. I'm going to tear my layers palette out as promised. So let's go down to our effects panel here and go bevel and emboss. So we're going with an inner bevel, smooth. We'll set the depth to 75. Make sure the direction is the same as the light hitting it. Let's go with a size of 7, an angle of 106. Set the altitude to 32. And for the gloss contour, rolling slope gloss. And just make sure that's anti-aliased. See, once we had that gloss contour, we actually had to just change that to make the light hit down, as the contour is going to influence what the light does when it hits. So let's make the highlights overlay, because I want it to be warmer than screen can give me, and we'll set that to 70%. The shadow mode, I'm going to go with a linear burn at 30%. Let's add another effect, so let's go satin. Let's set it to multiply at 20% opacity. We'll leave the angle at 90 degrees with a distance of 50 and a size of 80. You can see we're already starting to get something good there. Satin's just giving me a feeling that the falling here is reflecting some of the environments around it. And lastly, just a drop shadow. I definitely want to make sure that it's the same color that I used for the background. So I'm just going to sample it from there. And there it is, 11313E. If you've used a different color for your background, just make sure your drop shadow is the same as that. It should just be a darker version of the base color. So let's set that to multiply at 30. The angle should be 106. It'll probably just pick up what the bevel and emboss is doing. We want the distance to be 3 and the size to be 3. 5% noise just to add what was going on over there. Let's save that and Command W, Control W if you're on Windows. And now we've basically got our front panel. Let's go below that and make a new layer called side panel. We're going to go to our rectangle tool again. We remember that we hit U to get that, and we'll pull a nice skinny one down again. And we'll just fine tune that to 400 by 1500 tall. Hit enter. Choose the same fill color. It's my most recently used color on the left. I'll select both of these and just align the tops. Then I'll get right in and make sure that just butts up against there nicely. Now let's start working on the side panel. So we're going to convert that to a smart object. Double click to launch. If most of our highlights are happening on the front, most of our shadows are going to happen on the sides. So let's duplicate that. Set it to multiply 10%. You can see that's just very subtle there. I want to get the same top highlights on here. So I'm just going to go back here and launch the front panel again. Pull that out. Just pull that across holding shift so it lands in the same place. The next item is to add the graphics. So let's choose hardbox side panel art. Again, I'm going to tear that out. I'll hold shift as I drag it over so it lands in the same place. Now I'm going to look for my front panel again. I'm going to go to the text, right click, and go to copy layer style. Then paste layer style. And we've inherited all the settings that we made on the first one. Let's save and close. Now we can begin doing our transformations. Let's group these and call that box. We'll start with the front panel. We're going to go edit, transform, and distort. Pull the top left point down by about 9 degrees while holding shift to make sure it doesn't jump out to the left or the right. This also I want to be quite flat to match the perspective of the surface that it's going to sit on. So I'm going to drag the bottom right anchor point just a snatch. For the side panel, we're going to go Command T. That's Control T on Windows, obviously. And we're going to set the width to 55. Let's make sure it just butts up nicely against that. Without hitting enter, we're going to go edit, transform, and distort. We'll pull the top right down, holding shift to about 26 degrees. Zoom in there, just pull the bottom down to match. Okay, and that's basically our box. I'm just going to collapse that, select both of those and just align them, get them nice and centered, and we can start working on our environment. Kind of a blush nude or rose gold if you want to call it that. So if you want to use the same color, that's FFB FA6. I'll just add that fill color there. The next thing I want to do is put it on a surface. So I'm going to make a new layer right above the box, grab my rectangular marquee tool, and drag just from the bottom of the canvas to slightly overlapping the render, fill with the same color. Now I want this to be a little darker because it's closer to us. So I'm going to do the same trick again and duplicate that, set it to multiply, and let's try 35%. That looks great. I'm going to merge down. I did not tell you how to do this in the tools of digital illustration, so that's just Command E or Control E if you are on Windows. Now let's add a bit of noise to this just to get it to match the environment. Let's pull it up a bit so we can see what we're doing. So filter, noise, I only want 5% now. I'm going to leave the same settings as before, and filter, noise again, so those have both got it. There's one more thing to do, which is to add a little bit of backlight to this and a little bit of foreground light to the surface. So let's hit D for our default colors, X to flip them again. Back to our gradient tool, and we're going to make sure we've got white to transparent. So let's start with the surface. We're going to drag in, create a new layer above that called surface. Did we keep this? Highlight, yes we did. How great is it when you copy and paste that and you don't have to type that out each time. Above the background, so below the box and below the surface highlight, we want to put a new layer and we want to change to a radial gradient. I'm going to start just below the surface. I'm going to hold shift so I get a nice straight line, drag about halfway up the mockup, get my nice backlight there. We'll call that background, copy and paste. Let's go ahead and draw a little surface highlight. So I'm going to go back to my linear gradient, just drag about halfway up there. I'd like to set that to screen, I think, at about 60%. Folks, we are done. If you followed along, we have created our first mock-up. We didn't use exact dimensions, we didn't worry too much about exact scale, but it's enough to show a client what's going on with the design, what it could look like. So congratulations, let's move on to the next one.